After entering his home, Shinkawa noticed a light from his window, partially obscured by a curtain. He tore the curtain away, a violent rip that shrieked against the quiet room. And as he stood there, he began to calm down. He convinced himself that the people who were trying to kill him were not there and told himself to accept reality. With his hand over his heart, he assured himself that nothing like that would ever happen in that location. Some time later, he sat on the floor with his back against the wall, reflecting on his return. The scene then shifted to the president of the FFC, who angrily slammed his phone onto a table. He asked his assistant about the challenger for their side, and she replied that she had already prepared one. However, she was unsure if Shinkawa, who was rumored to have signed with the UFC, would be interested. The president responded that his skill was in making the impossible possible and instructed her to watch as he made the match happen. He then asked her to connect him with Dana, a representative for the UFC. The two men met over a video call. Dana greeted the FFC president, who thanked him for his time. The president stated that he had heard rumors about Shinkawa signing with the UFC, which Dana confirmed, commenting that a remarkable individual had appeared, and it was a surprise he had been unaffiliated for so long. The president said that was why he had invested so much in nurturing Shinkawa at the FFC. He explained that if Shinkawa moved to Dana's side, the FFC would lose their investment and their champion seat would be empty. Dana smirked, saying that it was a difficult situation, but the fighter himself had sought a bigger stage. The FFC president said he was willing to overlook some losses and even congratulate Shinkawa on his new contract, and in return they would appreciate some concessions. Dana was confused by this request. The president continued, explaining that they wanted Shinkawa to fight one last time as the FFC champion to help offset their losses, and that it would also be a good opportunity for Dana to test Shinkawa's skills. The assistant privately wondered if he really thought such a proposal would be accepted. At that moment, Dana interrupted the president. He explained that he had only agreed to the meeting out of respect for fighting organizations worldwide, but this was a different matter. With a menacing expression, he stated that they should offer something of equal value when negotiating and questioned why they were approaching him with nothing to offer. The FFC president was startled and denied that there was any need to think so deeply about it. Dana, furious, responded that he couldn't stand his assets being treated so lightly. He said Shinkawa had found a place that matched his level and that the FFC president should know his place. Back at Shinkawa's home, he was seen meditating and doing isometric exercises, clasping his hands together and concentrating. The scene changed again to a hospital. A doctor asked Shinkawa if he had been continuing with the isometric exercises they had discussed. Shinkawa confirmed he had, nodding his surprise at how much he was sweating despite the low intensity. The doctor explained that the movement stretched and aligned muscle fibers while minimizing joint use. He told Shinkawa that was all for today and that he could begin light exercise. When Shinkawa asked if he could go to the gym, the doctor replied that he could and that it was what he had expected of a migratory fish. Shinkawa thanked him and left. The doctor was confused by his hurry. At the Cornerman MMA gym, Shinkawa was greeted by a commotion of his friends who flocked around him, expressing their excitement that a junior who had lost 10 amateur matches had made it to the UFC less than a year after his professional debut and had won his first round. They asked him if it had been difficult being so famous, and Shinkawa bluntly replied that it was not like that, and that he did not go out except to the hospital. His friends then told him that 3 female members had joined specifically because of him, along with a few middle and high school boys who did not matter. They told him that the fighters section had finally blossomed. Shinkawa questioned what they meant by that, and his friends explained that Tsumugi Yuta, an ADCC champion in Jiu-Jitsu, the most prestigious no-gi submission grappling tournaments in the world, had joined the gym. Shinkawa thought that was a high level of accomplishment. His friend agreed, adding that he had learned the hard way not to underestimate her, and that her grip was something else. Shinkawa was confused as to why a Jiu-Jitsu fighter of her caliber would come to their gym and wondered if she wanted to compete in MMA. They confirmed that she did and that she had chosen their gym because Shinkawa was there. They told him that she would arrive after school so he should make sure to greet her. When Shinkawa asked if she was a student, they confirmed that she was a college girl and jokingly referred to him as a lucky bastard. The coach then interrupted, scolding them for having so much free time to talk about college girls. He instructed Takeshi and Ryo to get ready for sparring and told Shinkawa and Shuji to come with him because he needed to talk to them. The coach took them to the waiting room and told them that the FFC had apparently tried to set up a match for Shinkawa and had contacted Dana. Shinkawa asked if there was a problem with that. Ryo answered that of course there was a problem since Shinkawa was already with the UFC. The coach added that Dana had rejected the proposal, saying it would lower the UFC's status. Shinkawa told the coach that he was fine as long as he could fight, and that if matches were being cancelled to maintain the organization's status, he would terminate his contract. The coach knew that would be his reaction, and so he had told the UFC about it, and they had agreed to arrange a higher-level match instead. Shinkawa expressed that he had no problem with that arrangement. Shuji, however, asked why the FFC president was so worked up about it. The coach told him that since they had not signed any contracts, the FFC had no rights. The The coach then explained that he had suggested Shuji as a replacement instead of Shinkawa for the championship match. Shuji was confused, pointing out that he was in the featherweight class and that Kento was in the lightweight class. The coach explained that if Shuji won this time, he would dominate 2 weight classes. His opponent would be Yukin Umeda, a fighter on the verge of being ranked in the UFC. Shuji then decided he would bulk up. Shinkawa asked if Umeda, who was supposed to have retired, had come back. The coach answered that if Umeda won in the FFC, there was talk of him taking a UFC test next. The coach said the match would probably overlap with Takeshi's, and since Takeshi would have him as a second, the coach wanted Shinkawa to be in Shuji's corner. It would be Shinkawa's first time as a second. Shuji was experienced, and since he would have to gain weight for this match, it should not be too difficult. The coach also noted that since they were both in the lightweight class, they would be perfect training partners for everything from pad training to sparring. Shinkawa asked about sparring, and the coach reminded him that he had just received a call from his doctor saying he could start moving around and that sparring should be fine, so he should give it a try. Immediately, Shinkawa stood up and asked Shuji to start right away. But Shuji refused, reminding him that he was supposed to be his second and had not even analyzed Umeda's style yet. Shinkawa told him that he had already watched Umeda's fight footage dozens of times, and that it would be fine, urging him to hurry. Shuji, the featherweight champion, questioned how he was supposed to take such a challenge. The coach added that perhaps that was exactly why Shinkawa was looking forward to it. Shuji then accepted the challenge. The coach told Shuji to go easy on Shinkawa because he was not in top form, but Shuji replied not to hold him back since Shinkawa was the one who had invited him for a full sparring match. After some time, Shuji was panting heavily and sweating, clearly exhausted. Shinkawa, however, was calm and composed, though he was sweating a little. The sparring continued, and Shinkawa landed a blow to Shuji's face, taking him by surprise. Shinkawa followed with a devastating uppercut. Shuji collapsed to his knees, thinking that Shinkawa was far too strong. As the fight ended, a person commented on the intense energy of the sparring. The kid Shinkawa trains, Jun, admired the fighters section. The person who had commented on the sparring was revealed to be Tsumugi, who then wondered if Shinkawa was just as strong in jiu-jitsu. Upon being asked by Jun why she was specifically interested in Shinkawa's jiu-jitsu, Tsumugi explained that she was very skilled at jiu-jitsu and considered herself unbeatable. Shinkawa then left the ring and began untying his hand wraps. Tsumugi approached him, introduced herself as a new member of the fighter squad, and asked if he was Shinkawa. She added that she was also 20 years old. Shinkawa did not reply. She wondered if he was the quiet type. She then asked him if he would be interested in sparring in jiu-jitsu. At that moment, Jun interrupted to remind Shinkawa that his own lesson was next. Shinkawa realized he hadn't checked on Jun recently and apologized, but Jun insisted he didn't need to. Shinkawa then asked what he had been doing while he was away, and Jun replied that Shuji had been looking after him. Shinkawa inquired about his progress, and Jun explained that they had worked on 1-2s into an uppercut and also low kicks. Shinkawa commented that if he could do that much, he could take down most opponents. Jun was surprised, remarking that he was shorter and chubbier than everyone else. Shinkawa advised him that if he thought of himself that way, he was bound to lose and he needed to change his mindset first. When Jun asked how to do that, Shinkawa advised him to think of it as a game, not a fight. They would start with defense, since his original purpose for coming there was to protect himself, not to attack others. Tsumugi observed that Shinkawa's guidance was very natural and wondered if he had any teaching experience. Jun and Shinkawa entered the ring. Jun put on his fighting gear while Shinkawa explained that most fights follow a basic boxing pattern, starting and ending with punches. He said the key was distance, and when an opponent was out of reach, Jun needed to quickly close the distance to a point where they couldn't exert their full power. Jun was confused, asking if he wouldn't get hit if the opponent started throwing wild punches. Shinkawa explained that as long as his face didn't get hit, he would be fine. When someone aimed a straight punch at the face, Jun just needed to use his guard to deflect it. Shinkawa showed him in practice how to deflect straight punches and pointed out that this was called parrying. Then he moved on to curved punches and told Jun to throw a hook. Jun tried it, and Shinkawa blocked it with his arm. He explained that stopping curved punches like that was called blocking. If Jun could remember just these 2 things, parrying straights and blocking hooks, he'd cut down the number of people who could hit him by half. The most important part was to keep stepping, since that would mess with the opponent's accuracy. Jun wasn't sure if this would really be enough, but Shinkawa told him to give it a try. They began a practice sparring session. Jun would get a point for blocking an attack and a point for landing a punch. Shinkawa moved swiftly around Jun, quickly changing his position. Shinkawa attacked with a straight punch, and Jun didn't react at all, having been caught off guard. Shinkawa instructed him to keep moving like he had just done, lightly extending his fist toward his opponent's face. He told him not to tense up or get greedy and to just focus on his footwork. He said the punches were just for show, so it didn't matter if they landed or not. He explained that when Jun's opponent stopped moving, he would have the advantage. Jun began to practice the footwork. Shinkawa told him that if he sensed his opponent was about to throw a combination, he should charge in instead. Shinkawa then dashed forward, shoving Jun away before launching a 1-2 combo of straight punches to his face. Shinkawa continued the instruction, telling Jun that even if his opponents kept coming, he should create distance and aim for the face again, which he demonstrated by launching another attack at Jun's face. Shinkawa asked Jun how it felt to experience that. Jun replied that it was super annoying and tiring. Shinkawa said that was exactly right and that for someone who hadn't seriously trained in martial arts, it should feel quite tough. He then announced it was Jun's turn to counterattack. He said the next phase was practical application and that Jun should try to keep up with his movements, maintain distance with footwork, and drain his stamina. He reminded Jun that he didn't need to rely on brute force to fight. They continued their practice, and Jun noticed that even with headgear on, Shinkawa's punches were more intense than the others. Jun wondered if this was the kind of punch a professional fighter took. Jun counterattacked, but Shinkawa dodged. As Jun was about to recover from his wide swing, Shinkawa prepared his left hand to swing but was surprised when he missed. Before Shinkawa could turn, Jun moved and punched him from the side, striking his shoulder. Shinkawa complimented Jun on the move, then retaliated with a punch straight to the stomach, instructing him that aiming for the body would be more effective in that situation, though he also acknowledged that Jun's previous move wasn't bad, especially since Shinkawa had been the one who told Jun to aim for the face in the first place. Shinkawa noted that at this rate, Jun would easily beat the bullies and told him he should have more confidence in himself. Jun was clearly happy to hear Shinkawa's compliment. Shinkawa then turned to Tsumyugi and asked her if she wanted to spar. She entered the ring, stretched her upper and lower body, and then signaled for Shinkawa to begin. Fighting and wrestling in modern combat sports were quite similar to pankration, an ancient Greek fighting technique, but jiu-jitsu was different, a martial art completely unlike pankration. Shinkawa and Tsumyugi both wore traditional karate attire, the crisp gi emphasizing their discipline and focus, each radiating determination and readiness. Shinkawa and Tsumyugi touched fists and began sparring. Right away, Shinkawa reached forward, and Tsumyugi intentionally fell onto her back, pulling his arm and snapping her legs upward to trap him in a lock. He reacted fast, pushing against her leg with his hand to stop the clamp. She shifted, driving her other leg into his chest, forcing him off balance and opening him up. In one swift motion, she wrapped her legs around his waist and pulled tight. Shinkawa didn't panic. He grabbed her arm, pinned it down, and lifted his hips, trying to break free and reverse the position. She twisted, slipping her hand from his grip, then hooked his leg, dragging him down until he had to kneel. Seeing an opening, she adjusted her legs for an arm lock, but before she could extend it, Shinkawa wedged his free hand between her thighs and pushed outward, breaking the hold. She instantly shifted her hips, abandoned the arm, and locked her legs around his leg instead. The pressure increased, he struggled, then finally tapped, conceding the fight. Tsumyugi was surprised that Shinkawa was only a blue belt. She asked how long he had been practicing, and he said 1 year. She didn't believe it. It usually took at least 2 years to earn a new belt, and with his level, he should have been ranked higher. Then she asked him to practice rolling instead of sparring. Shinkawa didn't understand at first. She explained that rolling was light training focused on technique with gentle tumbling movements. She clarified that sparring wasn't fair, the physical difference between them was too great, and since she was a woman, it couldn't be helped. Shinkawa didn't feel like it mattered, saying it didn't feel like he was training with a woman. She got annoyed and asked what he meant. He bluntly said the match had been intense, back and forth, and fun. She thought he said it with such an expressionless face. Shinkawa realized he could learn a lot from her. Despite their physical differences, Tsumyugi could turn any situation to her advantage. He agreed that focusing on rolling practice would benefit them both and looked forward to working with her. Tsumyugi blushed, suddenly embarrassed, but said they could help each other and teach her how to punch too. He agreed. Jun watched amazed as Tsumyugi fought on equal terms with Shinkawa. She wasn't exaggerating when she said jiu-jitsu was her specialty. The scene shifted to the FFC octagon, in the fighters' waiting room. Shuji and Shinkawa were preparing for the match. Shuji thought about how he had never beaten Shinkawa in sparring and wondered if Yumeda Yukon was stronger than Shinkawa. After finishing wrapping his hands, Shuji checked Shinkawa's work and noticed he had done a great job. The coach's taping technique was the best. Shuji asked if Yumeda was weaker than Shinkawa. Observing Shuji's trembling legs, Shinkawa guessed his nervousness and reassured him that no matter who the opponent was, Shuji would win. Shuji was surprised. Shinkawa explained that he would be fighting alongside him, which reassured Shuji. He even thought about calling Shinkawa senpai from now on, but Shinkawa refused. The match began. Shuji was in the octagon waiting for his opponent with Shinkawa as his cornerman. Shinkawa stayed focused, radiating energy. In his past, he had been surrounded by warriors. Everyone feared him, yet they followed him to the Colosseum. He grabbed sand from the ground and declared that they would not lose a single person. The warriors yelled in determination. Opponent gladiators entered the Colosseum, and Shinkawa and his comrades charged, roaring with determination. Back in the present, Shuji was filled with the same determination, ready to face his opponent. Shinkawa thought to himself that he would win in this world too. Yumeda showed no concern, thinking that Shuji was nothing. Yumeda's cornerman told him to crush his opponent. The two fighters stared each other down, and Yumeda smirked with a strange expression. Shinkawa checked if his voice could reach Shuji, and Shuji confirmed that he could hear both Shinkawa and the opponent's cornerman loud and clear, signifying that he heard the opponent's remark. The venue was small, and there were not many spectators. Shuji rushed forward and threw the first strike, a straight punch. Yumeda leaned back, dodging the attack. As he backed up, he noticed the cage was right behind him and wondered if the space had always been so cramped. Shinkawa instructed Shuji that his opponent was scared and running and advised him to press forward. Yumeda thought it was some kind of joke, as he could hear everything they were saying. He believed there was no way he, who was on the verge of being ranked in the UFC, would lose to a small fighter like this. Yumeda quickly changed his location, shifting to the side and then kicked Shuji's leg with a leg strike. The sound of the kick was so loud that even the audience heard it. The spectators noted that Yumeda's low kicks were no joke and wondered if Shuji's leg had broken. However, Shuji recovered quickly, counterattacking with a punch to the stomach while lowering his head. The punch didn't connect as Yumeda dodged it with a slight movement. Without missing the opportunity, Yumeda launched another low kick to the leg. This time, Shuji felt the pain. As Shuji was in pain, Yumeda leaped forward with a punch aimed at his face. The punch connected directly with Shuji's face. Yumeda stepped back, giving Shuji a moment to breathe before moving swiftly again. This time, Shuji rushed toward Yumeda and threw a punch. Yumeda moved his foot and Yumeda's cornerman instructed him not to trade blows, saying it was better to fight and outbox since Shuji's reach was too short to hit him anyway. Shinkawa in turn instructed Shuji to charge in 2 or 3 more times. Yumeda shoved Shuji back, striking him directly in the stomach and pushing him away. Shinkawa yelled not to mind it and to move in 1 more time. Shuji followed the instruction and rushed in again. Yumeda was confused that Shuji was coming at him again, nodding it was a choice that could only be made if Shuji completely trusted his cornerman. As Shuji rushed in, Yumeda moved his leg, preparing for a kick. Shinkawa yelled kick catch. Hearing Shinkawa, Yumeda hesitated. At that moment, Shuji threw a punch and Yumeda put up his guard, however it was a feint. Shuji punched with his other hand, delivering a destructive punch straight to Yumeda's face. The punch was so powerful that Yumeda was thrown against the cage wall. Shuji didn't relent. He rushed in and continued a barrage of punches, forcing Yumeda to be on the defensive. Still, Yumeda managed to grab Shuji's hand, then jumped as if he was going to put Shuji in an arm lock. Shuji instantly pulled his hand away, but that wasn't all. Mid-air, Yumeda kicked Shuji in the chin with a painful kick. Shuji was overwhelmed by the kick and dazed, but Yumeda quickly recovered, grabbing Shuji's leg. Shinkawa yelled a word twice. At that moment, Shuji rolled to the ground, grabbing his opponent's leg at the same time and releasing himself. Yet Yumeda managed to escape his leg and backed out quickly. As he was about to attack Shuji, who he thought was on the ground, he lost his balance. He realized he couldn't control his leg. At that moment, Shuji rushed in. The cornerman yelled for Yumeda to defend himself, but it was no use. Shuji struck Yumeda directly on the face, following it with a kick that distorted Yumeda's face. Yumeda was knocked out and the referee checked on him, confirming he was out of it. Shuji roared in triumph. He then jumped over the octagon cage and landed in front of Shinkawa. Shuji grabbed Shinkawa's face, telling him he felt at ease compared to Yumeda's low kicks, which were nothing in comparison. Shinkawa complimented him on a good job. Shuji then hugged Shinkawa, telling him to be his cornerman from now on. As Yumeda sat defeated in the octagon, Shuji approached him and offered a hand. Yumeda accepted and stood up, commenting on Shuji's good condition. Shuji replied that it was thanks to his cornerman, and Yumeda expressed a desire to greet Shinkawa. Yumeda approached Shinkawa and extended a handshake, admitting that he had wanted to fight him at first but was glad he didn't, as he probably would have lost even worse. He commented that Shinkawa wasn't just talented as a fighter but as a cornerman too. The president of the FFC was angry about the outcome, and exclaimed that he hated the idea of letting go of someone who could attract this much attention just for being a cornerman. The audience commented that having Shinkawa as a cornerman was great too, and speculated about the intensity of Shuji's jiu-jitsu. They guessed it was entirely possible for Shuji to get a shot at the UFC if he also won in the lightweight division. The assistant noted that the audience seemed to have a high opinion of Shuji as well, with being from the same gym as Shinkawa being a major factor. The president added that the same went for Takashi, as all the fighters from that gym were top-notch in both skill and personality. The assistant inquired if they should settle for a lower-tier option for now, and the president reluctantly agreed they had no choice. In the locker room, both Takashi and Shuji were smiling, happy with their victories. Shuji asked Takashi what happened to his face because it looked terrible. Takashi said the same thing to him. The coach expressed that they were both grinning like fools and then turned to Shinkawa and complimented his job as a cornerman. The coach announced that they had received a fight offer for the main card of a numbered event. Shinkawa nonchalantly accepted the proposal. Shuji and Takashi were wide-eyed and told Shinkawa he should have more of a reaction and asked if he understood what it meant to be on the main card of a UFC numbered event. They asked the coach why Shinkawa was so calm, but Shinkawa said he understood. The coach told them that Shinkawa's calmness was nothing new. At that moment, the president of the FFC entered and complimented them on their match. The coach asked what brought him there, and the president replied that he was there to commend their efforts. He then greeted Shuji, telling him how great his fight was and that winning 2 FFC titles wasn't just a dream anymore. Shuji thanked the president, who then said if Takashi became a champion too, their gym would have 3 champions. The president also mentioned that Shinkawa's work as a cornerman was impressive. He wished for Shinkawa to maintain ties with the FFC even after going to the UFC. The president then offered an unofficial sponsorship, wanting to become Shinkawa's sponsor. The assistant added that they would consider an amount of 1 million yen. In return, they would like Shinkawa to appear on their official channel during FFC events and offer some words of encouragement to the fighters. Shinkawa said he couldn't decide that on his own, and the assistant asked if he had signed a management contract. The coach interrupted her, telling them he would handle that and that what they were proposing sounded more like a sponsorship, which he wanted to clarify first. She replied that was correct, and to avoid any issues, they should proceed with it as a sponsorship from the start. The president claimed it wasn't really necessary to be so particular about it. The coach revealed that they had been turning down numerous sponsorship requests. The assistant was surprised. The coach continued, explaining that if they only chose sponsors that wouldn't interfere with training, the options would narrow even further. Given their conditions, he expected at least 3 to 4 million yen. The president disclosed that given the popularity of MMA in Japan, even 3 million was unrealistic. The coach clarified that the recent away match had generated more buzz than they had expected, and they were surprised too. The assistant whispered to the president that it didn't look like they were bluffing and that they should consider the terms for now. The president agreed. He told them that they would discuss the details and get back in touch, and asked them to choose them if there was a conflict with other offers, as they were the top MMA organization in the country. The coach replied that they would consider it positively. At a small restaurant, everyone from the gym drank and feasted, celebrating Shuji and Takashi's victory. They toasted to the cornerman's bright future. The coach told Shinkawa that a company called Hard Puncher fit his criteria. Shinkawa guessed it was about using their equipment or promoting it to other fighters. The coach explained that it was best to use the sponsor's product when he could, and that promoting it was up to him. The condition was to post a 30-second video on social media of him training with Hard Puncher bag gloves and a 1-minute sparring video. Shinkawa accepted the arrangement. The coach added that there were also companies for nutritional supplements, health foods, and diet meal plans, but none of them met their standards. Still, the coach thought it was better to accept them all. Shinkawa told the coach his goal wasn't to make money. The coach replied that even so, being in the best condition for the UFC match would be advantageous, and staying there for a while would be quite expensive, but the benefits would match the cost. After thinking about it, Shinkawa agreed and accepted all of them as long as they didn't interfere with his training. The coach advised that they needed to set up his social media accounts. At that moment, Tsumugi asked to see Shinkawa's phone. He gave it to her and she set up his accounts, then gave his phone back to him. She told him everything was done and that she had set up mutual follows with his account. The other guys then gave Shinkawa their phones so he could follow them back too. Shinkawa's account had literally nothing posted yet. Then out of the blue, Tsumugi asked Shinkawa if he had a girlfriend. He told her he did not. She, blushing, asked him why not. The coach felt awkward hearing their exchange. Shinkawa then told them he was tired and excused himself. They said goodbye to each other, thinking that Shinkawa probably didn't want to mess up his routine. As Shinkawa was leaving, Tsumugi watched him intently and, blushing, thought that at this rate, he would never get a girlfriend. A gladiator was towering over Shinkawa in a nightmare. The gladiator lifted him, slammed him to the ground, and stomped on him. At that moment, Shinkawa woke up, relieved that it was just a dream. He grabbed his phone and started looking through social media comments. Some of the comments were supportive, calling him a national treasure and encouraging him to go for the world championship. Other comments were from a less serious crowd, asking if they could bring weapons to raid the gym or wanting to fight him. After his morning run and shower, Shinkawa went to the cornerman gym. He greeted his coach, who handed him a pair of boxing gloves from their new sponsor, Hard Puncher. The coach told him to put them on and hit the sandbag while he filmed 2 rounds. He also asked Shinkawa if he had eaten breakfast, and Shinkawa nodded. The coach said that was not a problem, referring to the diet meal sponsorship they had discussed the day before. He added that Shinkawa needed to start cutting weight soon, so the timing was perfect. Shinkawa then asked if there were more sponsorships. The coach informed him there were also supplements and instructed him to comment on them while facing the camera. They began filming the sponsorship videos. The coach also informed Shinkawa about an upcoming training camp in America, explaining that his biggest regret from his own days in the UFC was not being able to leave Japan to sharpen and improve his skills because he didn't have the money. He said Shinkawa could go to the gym where the coach used to train. The only problem was the funding, as even a minimal-scale camp would cost 300,000 yen for 2 months, which was more than half of what Shinkawa had earned so far. The coach said the gym would cover what the sponsorships did not, but Shinkawa refused, calling it a personal matter. The coach did not give up and told Shinkawa to think of it as stocks, as he was investing in him out of his own self-interest. He advised Shinkawa to just focus on winning because that was what everyone supporting him wanted. After that, they went straight to training. They practiced punches and kicks, and the gym members started talking among themselves about Shinkawa's social media. He had just started it yesterday, but it already had 3,000 followers, even though he had only posted training videos. The coach was the one who was managing the account and uploading everything. One of the members thought it was a shame because interacting with fans could be fun, and they agreed that was how social media was supposed to work. They said if they were Shinkawa, they would live stream every day, since in this job, how well you capture fans' hearts directly affects your future livelihood. Coach showed them the comments on Shinkawa's social media, which included comments like, "The comments generally praise his transparency and lack of self-promotion, observing his focus on martial arts over social interaction, and suggest he may be stoic or primarily motivated by activity funds." The members were confused and wondered if this was the right way to do it. They thought that even if they tried to copy him, it wouldn't mean anything if they did it carelessly, as they could get seriously injured. Besides, the level of attention was completely different. In San Francisco, Shinkawa and the coach arrived at the place where they would be staying during the camp. Shinkawa thought it was too fancy. He had assumed the budget would be tighter. The coach explained that it was the vacation home of someone who wanted to support Shinkawa. When he asked who it was, the coach said they had requested to remain anonymous and that he just needed to focus on winning. The gym would start tomorrow, so today was for resting. At the American Fighting Academy, everyone was practicing when Shinkawa and the coach entered. A voice greeted them. It was Rose and Konorin. The two fighters faced each other and Rose extended a handshake, expressing that it was good to see him again and asking if he was preparing for his next fight. Shinkawa realized he had no idea that Rose was affiliated with the academy. Rose advised him not to let his guard down, saying this was a battlefield, exactly what Shinkawa had hoped for. He mentioned that Aaron Diaz was really tough, but that he would be rooting for him. Shinkawa then noticed the coach talking to someone. The coach introduced Cus Mendes, the founder and head coach of the gym. Cus Mendes had watched Shinkawa's fight and could not believe someone had actually beaten that gorilla, pointing at Rose. Mendes hoped Shinkawa would adapt to the gym and start with the warm-up. The coach explained that the American Fighting Academy was known for causing a lot of injuries during practice, which meant their training was very close to actual combat. Shinkawa joined the others, running laps until they were exhausted. Mendes added 10 more laps, then had them do duck walks followed by a tackle drill. Their backs hurt and their thighs felt like they were about to burst. Mendes yelled at them, saying that if they slowed down, they would fully experience what it felt like to be a burden to their teammates. They were told not to stop moving, it wasn't going to kill them. During practice, Shinkawa grabbed and took down his partner, who was much bigger than him. The guy thought Shinkawa was completely inhuman. The coach explained that when people engage muscles they don't normally use, most give up quickly, but Shinkawa didn't. The coach was puzzled by how much basic training he had done. Mendes commented that Shinkawa's level wasn't inferior even to those from Dagestan who trained at high altitude almost every day. Mendes guessed that the coach must be giving him good guidance, though the coach didn't fully realize it himself. Mendes wanted to see Shinkawa's grappling skills and instructed Timur to spar with him. Timur asked if Shinkawa was in the same weight class. Mendes explained that was why grappling only was fine. Timur wasn't keen on it, but Shinkawa expressed eagerness. Timur, annoyed, asked if he even knew who he was. Shinkawa said he knew he was the champion. Timur and his guys grew angry and threatening, asking if he understood what he was saying. Rose intervened, telling Shinkawa he should apologize because it could get dangerous. Shinkawa didn't back down. Instead, he provoked them, asking how long they were going to just stand there looking dazed. This made the guys even more irritated. Timur accepted the challenge, declaring he would make Shinkawa understand his place. The coach commented that this was exactly what Mendes was aiming for. Mendes told them not to ask boring questions. This was what it was all about. Timur Aliyev, a champion skilled in Dagestani grappling, was Shinkawa's opponent, a chance to test if his strength was enough. Shinkawa prepared himself. The current commentator for the UFC, Danny Cormier, known as DC and a former light heavyweight unified champion, remarked on the fight between the rising star who had defeated Rose and the champion. He said they were lucky to witness it, predicting it might end in seconds. The fight started. Shinkawa tried to grab Timur's hand, but Timur pulled it away quickly. He ducked and grabbed Shinkawa's leg. Shinkawa's eyes struggled to keep up. He ducked and tried to free his leg from Timur's grasp. He succeeded but lost balance. Timur quickly positioned himself behind Shinkawa, but Shinkawa shifted and recovered without giving Timur a chance. The two were now face to face. Timur grabbed Shinkawa's arm and pulled his head down with the other hand, but Shinkawa didn't get overpowered. He pulled down Timur instead. Timur thought Shinkawa's core was as solid as a rock. He wasn't phased at all and wasn't even breathing hard. Timur shoved Shinkawa, making him fall, and placed his leg between Shinkawa's legs, slamming him to the ground. Shinkawa remembered a nightmare where he had been thrown by a warrior and used it as reference to push Timur away and free himself. Everyone was surprised that Shinkawa had been taken down by Timur and was already back up. Timur saw his chance, grabbed Shinkawa's leg, but Shinkawa shifted swiftly, pinning Timur beneath him. Timur exclaimed at Shinkawa's nerve, but Shinkawa maintained control. Timur pushed up, giving Shinkawa the opening to grab his back instantly. With Timur's back exposed, Shinkawa took it, creating an opportunity to apply a rear naked choke that could end the fight. Everyone was shocked. Danny clapped, saying he had never seen anything like it. No one expected Timur's back to be taken. Shinkawa's strength amazed everyone. Both fighters rose to their feet, the air still heavy with the clash that had just ended. Timur smirked and remarked that Shinkawa was quite the slippery one. Since they were in the same weight class, he added, their paths were bound to cross again. Shinkawa lowered his gaze to his hand, a strange thought flickering. It was the first time he truly remembered that person. Then Shinkawa with a dark tone, declaring that next time it would be a fight for their lives. Timur, calling Shinkawa a rookie, asked him with a sharp grin and asked if he understood what that really meant. After some time, Shinkawa decided he did not want to pay $700 for sparring. The coach then raised the question of where they could find someone willing to spar for free. The coach explained that AFA's fighters were off limits, and Shinkawa understood that he could not risk injuring them. Instead, he volunteered to be a sparring partner for other fighters. Mendes found Shinkawa interesting, thinking he had guts and wild ideas. He liked that Shinkawa was not looking for an official match but simply wanted to spar with whoever chose him. Shinkawa preferred training with class fighters for a more realistic experience. Mendes assured him that he would find someone. The fighters overheard that Shinkawa was willing to spar with anyone who called for him. They thought he was crazy, wondering what would happen if he got injured before his own match. That could make it difficult for both Eren and Shinkawa to rank up. Timur believed that such toughness was exactly what was needed to face Eren Diaz. Eren, described as straight-up gangster and a wolf, was unpredictable, capable of winning or losing against anyone at any time. Soon after, a fighter named Vincent Vittel was introduced. Vincent had previously won the lightweight championship with his striking power and had now bulked up to welterweight. Shinkawa also introduced himself. Vincent, unfamiliar with the FFC, questioned whether Shinkawa was sure about sparring given their weight difference. Shinkawa explained that he was on his pre-weight cut while Vincent was cutting weight, so their builds should not be too different. He added that if Vincent had any requests, he should say them now because Shinkawa was hired to do whatever was asked. Vincent simply told him to give it his all, assuring that he would not be holding back either. Both fighters entered the ring wearing their gear, then they touched gloves and began sparring. Vincent opened with a low kick to Shinkawa's leg. The coach immediately noticed that Vincent's attacks carried more weight, which was expected from someone fighting at a higher class even if he was cutting weight. Vincent dashed in aggressively, enjoying the moment, feeling truly alive as he pressed forward. Shinkawa's vision flashed back to a gladiator charging with an axe. He imagined himself throwing up a shield, intercepting with immense energy. Vincent was confused when Shinkawa suddenly lowered his guard. As Vincent launched his attack, Shinkawa shifted his body to the side, dodging the punch and countered with a strike to Vincent's face. Shinkawa followed with another devastating attack from the other arm which connected cleanly. Vincent collapsed, knocked out. The referee immediately checked him while the coach looked on in awe. Jaw dropped, Shinkawa calmly stated that he was still far from Eren Diaz's level and that they should find another opponent. After the sparring session, they left the fighting club. Shinkawa asked how much they had earned and the answer was $500. However, the coach doubted they would receive another sparring offer since the fight had not reflected well on Vincent. Shinkawa replied that he had only followed Vincent's request to give it his all. The coach quietly wondered if that had really been the right call. The next day at the AFA, other members congratulated Shinkawa. His knockout of Vincent Vittel had already caused a stir, reaching even nearby gyms. The coach realized that the story had already turned into a rumor. He guessed it would be the end of sparring offers, but Mendes surprised him, reporting the opposite. They had been flooded with requests from nearby gyms, and the pay had even gone up to $700. Shinkawa welcomed the news, while Mendes suggested that since they could not accept all offers, they would make a list similar to Eren's. At another gym, Shinkawa's reputation began to grow into legend. Fighters talked about how he had knocked out the tough Vincent Vittel with a single blow. Gus, who had fought despite injured ribs and avoided body shots, had been unable to continue after 3 rounds of leg kicks. Kevin Newhart excused himself by blamming his left knee after tapping out to an armbar in just 15 seconds. At that moment, Eren silenced them all with anger, declaring that he did not care who Shinkawa had beaten or where. He vowed that when the moment came, he would ensure Shinkawa never stood again. Eren's friend worried that he was becoming impatient, though it was not unexpected. He seemed like a wild beast closing in on prey. The friend advised him not to let his guard down regardless of distance, warning that Shinkawa was a hard puncher who had overpowered Rose with sheer strength and finished all his fights in the first round. That meant his stamina was still unknown. Eren asked if the plan was to wear Shinkawa's stamina down. The friend responded that charging head-on against such a strong all-rounder required tremendous courage. Eren, enraged, claimed to be exactly that kind of gutsy fighter. His friend agreed and told him he should prove it by showing Shinkawa what a real fight looked like, urging him to drown his impatience in fighting spirit. Meanwhile, Shinkawa's coach checked his phone and noticed through a sleep routine app that Shinkawa had not slept at all. Concerned, the coach asked if it was because of a bad dream and advised him to skip training at this level. Shinkawa replied that it had always been this way. They decided to run a medical check at the conditioning center. In the testing room, the examiner explained that unless the machine was broken, Shinkawa had one of the highest cardio endurance levels in the entire UFC. The average resting heart rate ranged from 60 to 70 beats per minute, but Shinkawa's was 35. This allowed him to remain calm and breathe steadily throughout fights, ranking him among the top tier of all fighters tested at the center. Further results showed that Shinkawa had the elasticity of a lightweight combined with the muscle strength of a middleweight. The examiner advised ignoring the sleep rhythm app as Shinkawa was in peak condition. When Shinkawa looked at the coach relented and suggested they take promotional photos for now. In the studio, Shinkawa wore his fighting shorts and posed. The cameraman felt the intensity radiating from him as if he were in an actual fight. Everyone present stood in awe. Shinkawa, however, was sweating profusely, his breathing and pulse erratic, making it seem as though he might collapse at any moment.